Point. I am Thomas Modesto. I'm here with all the boys again for the second episode in a row. Today we'll be talking about the Atlantic Division, but first things first, how are we all doing tonight, gentlemen? Alex, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. I had a lot of fun talking about the Metro last episode, so really excited to get into the Atlantic this time. I think we're going to have relatively the same discussion, it seems like. So, ready to get this started.
Yep. Tristan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Had a nice time outside today. It was a bit chilly and just made me excited to talk about some nice cold hockey.
Oh yes, Sean, how are you doing? I know you've been busy, so how you really been doing?
I've been doing terrible today, Thomas. I'm going to be honest with you. I am so excited to talk about the division because there are no Washington, D.C. sports teams involved. So I'll just leave it at that.
Understandable, understandable. And so, like I said, we are doing the Atlantic Division, and again, I'm going to have to give a bit of an asterisk here. The division still haven't been 100% kind of figured out yet, so this could be a non-factor by the end of this episode for all we know, but this is what is going on right now, and with that said, we'll get it started. The Red Wings, they are not as an interesting team. They're big additions, yeah, well, they're big additions, were Vladislav Namestnikov, former Ranger and bum, Troy Stetcher, Thomas Greiss, John Merrill, and Bobby Ryan. Their biggest loss is Trevor Daley, retired Johan Franzen. Yeah, right. No,
The fact that that's their biggest loss.
Trevor Daley, Johan Franzen. They lost Jimmy Howard, and then they announced that they will not be bringing back Justin Abdelkader.
Rats.
I personally, I'll just start it off. I have them finishing dead last in 8th in the Atlantic as, in my opinion, probably the worst team in the NHL. They may not. They may be the second worst team in the NHL because there's a team in the Pacific that is also just horrendously bad that we will talk about eventually. But this Red Wings team really, really sucks. Alex, what do you think about the Red Wings?
So, now just hear me out. If you want to talk about a sleeper in the, I'm kidding. This team is so bad.
I was about to say, where are you going with this?
Yeah, I know. And so, to be honest with you, I'm going to make this very brief because first things first, as a Hawks fan, there's nothing better to see than the Detroit Red Wings just struggling. I love seeing it so much since being in the crowd. Since when I was a little kid, chanting "Detroit sucks" instead of "Let's go Hawks." Like I said this so many times, but this team is the definition of unexciting. It's just so boring. The fact that their best player that they added on their team was Bobby Ryan. Let's rebuild with Bobby Ryan. That's a terrible idea. Not good anymore. He wasn't good last year or the year before that. It's a weird addition onto their team, and then you might get excited with their prospects, but hey, what's his name? Svechnikov on the Hurricanes. His older brother, excuse me, Evgeny Svechnikov. They only gave him a 1-year contract extension, which you could debate that this guy's looking like he's going to be a bust. So, and then there are other prospects that they're having coming up. Michael Rasmussen, he's not looking too good either.
Not for an 8th overall pick.
Yeah, I know. So a lot of these guys that I'm excited to see, like a Moritz Seider. He played a little bit last year. He's a very exciting prospect, another German prospect. But again, this team has nothing, and I hate seeing Dylan Larkin on this team and struggling because I love Dylan Larkin. I love Tyler Bertuzzi. That's all I like on this team. They suck. Next.
All right, Tristan, what do you think about the Red Wings?
Well, not to do what we did last week and just completely agree, but I'm just going to completely agree and say that they're just going to suck.
Yeah,
I don't see really any bright spots about this team. They don't really have any good goalies. They have some prospects, but even they're gonna just take so long to come up. And they have a good first line. Dylan Larkin, Tyler Bertuzzi, Anthony Mantha. That's a pretty good first line. Mm-hmm. And then you just kind of start getting into Nothing.
After that,
Shitters.
it's Bumville is after that. It's actual
Exactly.
garbage. All right,
Yep.
Sean, what do you think about the Red Wings then?
This is a warning for everybody ahead of time to adjust your volume down a little bit. I'm upset that we did not talk about the biggest loss of this past season, which was Mike Green! They traded him to the Edmonton Oilers. Mike Green is a favorite. They also don't have Madison Bowie, so zero Capitals former defenseman on the Red Wings. No, but in all seriousness, this team's garbage. Like, there's really no way to get around it. I think everybody has them picked dead last in the division for a good reason. I also think that they might be dead last in the National Hockey League again. And I'm not going to lie, it's going to be pretty sad when Detroit gets screwed again in the lottery next year, because let's be honest, it's going to inevitably happen. And
No, it's gonna be awesome.
you have to think, I mean, Detroit has to have, and I don't want to obviously spend too much time on this, but Detroit has to have like the most suffering fan base in hockey right now, not only for what they have to put up with watching on the ice, but you went through all of that tanking for not Alexis Lafreniere.
Facts.
Like, you literally went through all of that. You didn't even get Quentin Byfield. Like, it's just...
I mean, they did get...
You got a great player. You did. But it's not the guy you all agreed, like, hey, let's just throw this season out the window for, everything's going to be okay. Like, we're talking about a historic tank across sports. Like, this was an NBA-style tank. And it didn't matter, which is why you have to kind of applaud the NHL for having the lottery system in place. However, I still digress, and we mentioned this in the earlier episode, that it should have in no way been any teams that have a chance to get the number one pick in the draft be somebody who could have also made the playoffs. But that's a whole other thing. He's a Ranger. He's not a Red Wing. I'm sure he's happy about that, but all Detroit fans are certainly not.
I gotta tell you one thing. With all the success that they have seen, though, winning like cups and just going on that ridiculous streak of years in the playoffs, I gotta say I really don't feel bad for this team. Like, beyond like them not getting Lafreniere, which was.
I feel bad for younger fans.
There's whole thing. Yes, clearly, but as a franchise as a whole, I really don't, because I mean they had like historically, literally like the best NHL team of all time. I think was a Red Wings team. And before we move on, quickly, just pop quiz: can anyone tell me how many points that the Red Wings finished with last season without looking anything up? Can anybody?
54.
54. All right.
I know for a fact it was in the 50s. I'm going to give him a little bit more of a benefit. I'm going to say 57.
57. Tristan, what do you say?
I'm going to go with 52.
52. You're all wrong. It's not even close to the 50s. They finished with 39 points last season. They went 17, 49, and 5.
Is that the worst team in NHL history?
It's up there.
It's close. I don't think it is.
I don't think it beats. No, it doesn't. I was gonna say I don't think it does not beat because the thing is too, you have to remember is they didn't play a full season. The Washington Capitals in their inaugural year in 1974, I have to look it up, but they had the worst record, I believe, in the history of the NHL. And they're also still the worst ever expansion franchise in the history of sports.
That's how it is. I will give the Red Wings credit, however, on one thing. They are a better team this year. They are a better team this year. They made great signings. I think that Troy Stecher signing was a good signing. Adding Thomas Greiss as your new starting goaltender was a pretty decent signing, because I mean Jimmy Howard is just not good anymore. Even though I think Vlad Nemestikov is a bum.
He is.
He was a pretty decent signing for that team. They got better. They're a better team. And on top of that, they shed like 3 old guys off of their roster. So
and then bring in Bobby Ryan.
Exactly. And the biggest thing, I mean, he's gonna help a little bit, but he's just a body. The key factors I put for them before I move on, I just said the biggest thing is just be better than last season. That's it. Don't shoot for the playoffs. Shoot for 40 points. That's it. And then
I think they're trying to tell themselves that.
Just focus on youth. Let the young kids play. Let them figure it out. That's it. Moving on, though. Or go ahead, Tristan. Go ahead.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I was just gonna agree with you. Like I probably should give them a bit more credit than I was given. And like they're gonna be
decent, but you just compare that to the rest of the Atlantic, and it's just an easy 8th place.
That's
I'm
pretty
giving them
solidified.
no credit. They suck.
Yeah, they suck, but they got better. But
Yeah.
we didn't spend as much time as we did last time just railing on the Devils. So consider all Red Wings fans listening lucky, because it could have been a lot worse from our end talking about this team. But moving on to the Ottawa Senators, I have them finishing this year in 7th place, right above the Red Wings. Their biggest additions this year, their biggest being Matt Murray, that they got in that trade. They got Eric Goodbranson, Evgeny Dadonov, Alex Galchenyuk, and then they traded for Austin Watson with the Predators. They lost Bobby Ryan, Mark Borowicki, Craig Anderson, Michael Bodker, and finally Clark MacArthur. His contract ends, and he's a bit of a sad story. He hadn't played since 2018. He was a pretty decent part of that really good playoff team that they had back then, and he just had head injuries, and his contract is finally shed. And to be honest, he's probably going to retire. But he's gone. So
Can I just stop you really quick?
Go ahead.
You missed one massive addition on this team. Jake Sanderson, my man.
Okay.
Miss Jake Sanderson.
Okay, I get it. You like Jake Sanderson. Jamie Drysdale is better, but I'm gonna skip you just for that. I'm gonna go straight to Tristan. Tristan, how do you think the Sens are gonna do? Where do you have them placed within the Atlantic Division this year? Tristan? We might have lost comms with Tristan. All right, that's fine. Sean, where did you put the Senators this year?
Yeah, I also have them finishing above the Red Wings and finishing in 7th place. They were not a good team last year. They made some decent signings and stuff like that, but they just still have such a long way to go. I just don't see them making that big of a leap. The Atlantic's a decent division. The problem is you look at it in a different way than the Metro, largely in part because you are just dragging down the division in a whole because of the Red Wings. They are just literally an anchor that the division has to kind of drag along with it. They don't have that in the Metro. The Devils are going to be terrible, but they're not going to be as bad. Oh, well, they might actually be worse than the Red Wings. We'll see. But regardless, I just don't think that they have exactly the firepower to overtake some of the other teams in the Atlantic and really move their way up the food chain. I still think they're a couple of years away. Maybe 2 seasons away from starting to kind of get in that wild card fight moving forward in the East.
Yeah, no, I can.
Because the thing is, you also have to realize is how hard of a fall from grace they had.
Yeah, no, it was such a short amount of time.
They were one goal away from the Stanley Cup just 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, granted, was it a kind of a wild run that they went on to make it that far? Yes, but I still think that the pieces were there, and it's just kind of wild when you look back and you say, "Wow." I mean, we talked about this with PK Subban last week in terms of just a player. This is a perfect example of a team that has just kind of fallen off of a cliff after looking like they had some serious promise moving forward, and things go down. Real quick, before we move on, I just want to ask everybody, or before we move on to the next person, how does everybody feel about their adjustment for the jerseys? Did they back to the retro theme?
I love them. I absolutely love them.
I love them.
I do Sens jerseys. Well, I guess
the new old. It's kind of like a reverse. It's kind of like a reverse retro.
I think
literally.
Oh, they're so slick. I love them.
I do too.
Yeah, same. They're nice. All right, Tristan, we'll go back to you since you are back. What do you think about the Sens?
Dude, all right, so I'll just start off with this. I have them, right above Detroit, 7th spot, but this entire summer was just a roller coaster. Because, I feel like some people might know, some people might not. I'm an Ottawa native. I go to University of Ottawa, so I have a little bit of a bias towards them, and I'm just kind of thinking, what the hell are these guys doing? A lot of the people that they're signing are young guys, and they're good guys like Murray and Galchenyuk, but I don't know, it's just really weird. And I'm kind of excited to see them like do well and like play in the next few years, but it's definitely not going to be an instant meld to where they're going to be like a playoff caliber team just yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And-
Beautifully put. Yep.
Speaking of the downfall from grace they had after 2017, I remember watching that game in the second overtime against the Penguins in the Eastern Conference Finals, and I was heartbroken, especially because that same year I went to Game 6 of the Pens Caps game where where the Caps got shut out 2-0, and I got a nice view from that. So I was really hoping the Sens would kill them, and they unfortunately did not.
I remember that OT goal that they lost on to the Penguins, because I remember I was in my basement watching it, and I could
Chris Kunitz slap shot?
Yes, I could almost see it develop in slow motion, because he found space right in the high slot, and there was no one around him. As soon as the puck got out there, I remember thinking to myself, being like, "Yep, that's game," and then he just slapped it right in.
The worst thing about that, though, is I think that even Craig Anderson saw that develop. It's an absolute knuckler.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, isn't that the year that Craig Anderson made his return?
Yes.
Following
Yes, it
his-
is.
so it was
Where
like
he
a
got
storybook.
the,
It was like a storybook season for them. They were on an incredible run, and it's just it's just
a
so
heartbreaking
heartbreaking.
loss.
I love that story too, because you guys might not know this either, but Craig Anderson is actually from around the same area that I'm from.
wow.
He grew up playing at the same. He grew up playing at the same rink that I grew up playing at. He played for the Chicago Young Americans at Center Ice at DuPage. He's got a big picture in the same ice arena. So whenever I see Craig Anderson being able to do that and make his comeback, and it was definitely heartbreaking to see. I mean, I shouldn't say that I took it hard, because I'm gonna be honest, I didn't. But it's still you
hate to see it.
You carry a heavy heart with that, yeah. But so Craig Anderson was playing on all heart, and for that series to end with just a knuckler, it just sucked.
Yeah.
It's interesting. This team is interesting, because I mean, the Atlantic as a whole is interesting, and I'm just going to say this, like, as just a precursor for the rest of the division that we're going to be talking about. Everybody in this division, except for two teams that have yet to be brought up, got better, and I think the Senators are still in that.
Yes.
And on top of that, like, they have young talent. They have a lot of young talent that is really going to show itself within the next 3 years. Like, they have guys that are playing right now, like Brady Tkachuk, and also the defenseman Eric Brandstrom. Like, those are guys that are going to be key assets to the success of Ottawa in the future. But on top of that, there's going to be guys that either haven't had a lot of playing time or haven't even touched the NHL yet. Like Josh Norris, Tim Stutzel is another one. I'm not sure if Drake Batherson has played an NHL game yet. He might have. I just may have missed it. But like they got a pretty good core they can work around now. Personally, I think for them, they're kind of in the same boat as the Red Wings. They're just in a better position because they just have better players and they're just gonna play better. Just focus on
also
that youth.
way younger.
Yes, well, yes, I agree. The problem with the Red Wings was that they gave out ridiculous contracts to all those old guys when they were still good, and just now is the time they kind of got stuck with the shittier versions of the old guys and have to pay them dumb amounts of money. With Ottawa, they're young, and they kind of avoided that because they never really handed out massive contracts. You could really track like where the downfall of the Sens started, and it was losing Erik Karlsson. That was really what sped up them. Yep. Just the decline of Ottawa.
That whole fiasco was just such a weird time for the entire Ottawa region, and like we hated that man. What was his name? Mentally blocked him out of my mind now.
Understand? I'm sure every other Sens fan has probably blocked it out.
He's on the Florida Panthers. I forget his name, but it was his girlfriend.
Mike Hoffman.
Yes.
Mike Hoffman and his girlfriend, or I think it was more of his girlfriend, but then Mike Hoffman didn't really.
It was all his girlfriend.
Toxic, the toxic woman. God,
for those people who don't know, she was, I guess, cyberbullying Erik Karlsson's wife after she just had a miscarriage with what would have been their firstborn son. And he kind of went a little bit of a internet buster with one of his gender reveal with the big slap shot that kind of started that whole little trend, and to just pick on that family after such a heartbreaking time is just such a terrible thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
little bit.
No, it's
Yeah, so he got traded immediately, and Erik Karlsson, like, there was just too much bad blood, and it's with Eugene Melnick as well. Like, I'm not surprised that anybody even kind of wants to play, or I'm surprised that they are able to get the addition.
No, they got
that
talented
can.
guys. They got talented
Oh yeah,
guys.
absolutely. But it's just they might just not know about Eugene Melnick yet because I'm pretty
it's
biased.
like
I
when-
don't like the man.
It's like when basketball players think, "Wow, playing in New York would be great," and then they meet James Dolan for the first time, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about this."
No, it's not.
I feel like in every episode we've brought up one James Dolan reference so far. So on the off chance that James Dolan is listening to this, James, I hate you. Anywho, moving on. After getting out of the basement of the Atlantic, it gets really interesting. And me and Alex had really good conversations off air. But the Sabres are probably one of the most interesting teams within the Atlantic Division, just for the addition of one man alone. And I have them finishing in 4th place. That puts them 3 spots higher, or I guess technically 2 spots higher, because they finished in 6th place last year. Their key additions, clearly Taylor Hall being that biggest addition, but they also added Eric Stahl, Cody Eakin, and Tobias Ryder, while only losing Jimmy Vesey, Wayne Simmons, and Dominic Cahoon. I know, Alex, that's a name you recognize.
Oh yeah.
But the biggest thing for them still is goaltending. Goaltending is the biggest thing for them. Can Carter Hutton really keep together and keep them in playoff contention? Because it's tough for Atlantic teams or I should say wild card Atlantic teams, to compete against wild card Met teams or Metropolitan Division teams, because the Metropolitan Division is the toughest division in the NHL, and the possible wild card teams coming out of the Met are just better overall. So their goaltending, I think, is going to be their biggest thing. However, I think for me, what gets them close to the playoffs, and they could steal that last wild card spot, is just the addition of Taylor Hall. Because the dude is now playing with Jack Eichel. Like, that duo is going to be absolutely insane. It's going to be
It
ridiculous.
is going to be so fun to watch.
They're going to be so much fun to watch. And the thing I think about with Taylor Hall is what he did in New Jersey when he went to the playoffs with the Devils. Like, if you look back at that team wasn't really that good. Like, they were.
Who did he have as a line mate? I don't even
remember.
It was the first line was Taylor Hall, Adam Henrique, and Zach Parise.
Yeah, like
there you go.
Zach Parise. Zach Parise was on that team?
On the Devils
Yeah.
when they won in overtime against the Rangers to go to the finals.
No. I'm talking a few
excuse
years
me.
ago, where they got absolutely demolished by the Lightning.
Oh, yeah.
Because Adam Henrique and Taylor Hall playing the line. I don't even know who said it. Was probably Nico Hischier, to be honest. But like it was terrible. Like there was a terrible team, and he high key carried. He high key carried them. But
it was a little unfortunate to see that he couldn't really do anything with the Coyotes, because I know Sean and even I got to see a game, and he was pretty fun to watch there. But in the playoffs, he got 1 goal, I think, and it was an empty netter. So gonna be interesting to see kind of how he fits into the mold. But I'm a betting man, and I'm gonna bet that it's gonna be a pretty good combination there.
it's gonna be fun. Sean, what do you make of this Sabres team?
Yeah, I think they got a lot better. I mean, like, I agree with Tristan. You know, in the Lightning game we went to, which, I mean, that's a great story. We'll save it for another episode. The best seats I think Tristan and I have ever had at a sporting event. We sat right behind the glass.
Absolutely.
It was fantastic, and they wore their Cucinas, so that's always a good time
fun
when
time.
the Coyotes are wearing one of the best unis in the NHL. But yeah, I mean, Taylor Hall was solid for the Coyotes. I actually had the pleasure of kind of getting to know him during this early parts of this past spring semester during as a reporter for the Coyotes in my capstone program at Arizona State. And he seemed excited. He seemed like he wanted to stay in the Valley, and he seemed like he wanted to help kind of build that team. However, I think he and the Coyotes knew that they weren't going to be able to make a big enough splash to add pieces around him to really get him where he wants to go. This is a guy who's won an MVP. He wants to start winning games that really matter. He can do that in Buffalo with Jack Eichel, I think. I think this team is going to take a massive step, because the thing that Taylor Hall has lacked over really his entire career has been a solid running mate. I mean, we mentioned that Devils team, and they were pretty good, but I think him and Jack Eichel on the same line is insane, and that's going to be one of the better lines in the NHL. Just off of pure talent, you just have to see if the production follows, and I think he will. I mean, I think this is Taylor Hall. He's only on a prove-it deal, isn't it? Just like one or
It's a 1 year.
It's a 1 year deal.
1 year,
It's
like
a 1
$8
year
million or
prove- yeah,
something
it's a-
like that.
Yeah, it's a 1 year prove-it deal. So he wants to show everybody that, hey, you can't call a guy who's won an MVP a bust, right? Like, that's literally, it doesn't make sense. But
Yeah.
there is a weird tag on Taylor Hall, because yeah, you won MVP, but you're not one of the top 5 even really. I mean, let's be honest. Is Taylor Hall a top 10 player in the National Hockey League?
I could make an argument.
Not after
I'm
last
saying
year.
he's
Not
close.
after last year.
I'm saying after last year, the fact you have to argue it is my
Yeah,
point. You don't have, you literally, you go through all the other Hart Trophy winners over the last decade. That's not the case. And so it's just, it's really going, this is going to be an angry and motivated and energized Taylor Hall going to a young Sabres team. And I mean, I thought they were going to be the destination to sign Braden Holtby. They ended up not going in that direction. I think they're going to take a massive leap. I definitely think the Buffalo Sabres are a playoff team this upcoming year.
Tristan, what do you think? Where did you put? First of all, Sean, where did you put the Sabres? Where did you put the Sabres?
Let me see where. I just need to take a look at the division just to make sure that I'm not saying something that I don't mean. Last thing I'd want to do is forget about a team that I think they don't deserve to be over. I'm going to go ahead and say that the Sabres finish 4th.
There we go.
I think they can finish 4th in this division. I have them over Florida. I have them over the Canadians, and I think those are the 2 teams that they take the jump over this year.
There we go. Tristan, where did you put the Sabres?
Dang, I have them at 4th.
There we go.
Hey, gang.
But yeah, it was a really hard time for me deciding that 4th spot between Montreal and Buffalo, and just looking at the power play alone with Victor Olofsson, Sam Reinhart, Taylor Hall, Rasmus Dahlin, and Jack Eichel, that's going to be able to carry them through so many games, even if their goalie can't really make the biggest saves that they need him to make just yet. At least, Carter Hutton, he can still do a pretty damn good job. Like, we've seen a lot of goalies kind of just step up their game for
they do enough
even 1 year. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
They do enough to get them there. Even Matt Murray, he's not even that. He's kind of had a fall from grace, but he was never really a superstar goalie. But he did his job, and that's kind of the thing that he's gonna need to do with Buffalo to get them into any good spot. But luckily, he has the team, he has the offense and the defense that he needs to kind of help him out. And just even for Montreal, Montreal has the better goalie by far. He's just all the other pieces are they just fit it so much better.
Yeah, no, I see exactly what you're talking about there. And, Alex, where did you also put the Sabres fourth, or
I
are we
did put the, I
changing it
did
up?
put the Sabres at fourth.
Let's go!
Alrighty, fourth
But
across the
seriously,
boards,
here's the
boy.
one thing.
Sean is leading the pad. I'm kidding.
Here's the one thing I will say about the Sabres that I disagree with. I do not see them as a playoff team, but I do see them finishing in fourth. Now, the only reason I see them finishing fourth and not a playoff team, it's not because of that I just don't think they're going to make it. I just think it's because we're going to see a lot of teams from the Metro make the playoffs.
That's
So
Mm-hmm.
I think there's going to be too many teams from the Metro making the playoffs where you can actually slide in Buffalo, and it sucks for them too because they are building up. I wouldn't say a powerhouse, but they're building up a really, really solid team. I mean, yeah, last year they didn't have a winning record, and then this year we're going to throw them all the way into fourth, which is crazy to say, but I can absolutely see it happen. I think Tristan hit the nail on the head with their power play unit. I mean, that power play unit they have is lethal.
Oh, it's going to be
And-
crazy.
Victor Olofsson is becoming one of my favorite players in the league. The fact that they only signed him to a 2-year contract is a little confusing for me because I think that's somebody that you give him a long-term contract. But somebody whose name we haven't heard anyone talk about yet, and I know, Tommy, me and you were talking about him earlier this week, was the signing of Cody Eakin. I think that is a beautiful signing for them. I think that is the kind of third, fourth line grit grinder that the Buffalo Sabres don't have yet. And I think he's going to slide into that third, fourth line. I would probably put him at the fourth line with Eichel as the first, Casey Middlestat as the second, Gergensons as the third.
Well,
and
no,
then
Casey's not going to be playing the second line. That second line center is going to Eric Stahl.
Oh yeah.
I forgot about Eric Stahl. Thank
Yeah.
you. Well, I actually wouldn't be surprised if they kind of start transforming Casey Middlestat into a winger because I think Casey Middlestat's ceiling is way too high. He already has all the talent to be a second liner.
He hasn't played all that well. He hasn't really
proven
played.
himself.
Absolutely
he hasn't
think
really
he's
played
a
that
second
well.
liner already.
No, I disagree.
I mean, you look at his line mates that he's had, and this is the year where he could actually show some true talent this year with the line mate. You probably would put Reinhart and
Tage
Reinhart
Thompson.
and Stahl with him. I mean, I don't know. I definitely see this team being an insanely good team. Just I can't see them making the playoffs though. I can't see them making the playoffs in the Eastern Conference.
Here's where I disagree with you because the Metro is going to be so much more competitive than
I was going to
Atlantic.
say, Tristan taking the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, it's like the Metro is going to be so much
They're
more
gonna eat
competitive.
each other.
Exactly, they're going to eat each other, so that there's going to be
Exactly.
less. The points are going to be more spread out between all the teams. So you're not going to be seeing, one team kind of more dominate over the rest, like we're going to see with Atlantic, and in this case, just a couple more teams fall behind than the rest of the team. So I feel like it's going to be easier to get points in the long run and get that last wild card spot than it is going to be in the Metro, and that's why I think Buffalo has a very good shot at getting one of those wild card spots.
It's also worth noting, and we've mentioned an asterisk at both the beginning of this episode, the beginning and end of last episode. Buffalo could be playing in the Central this upcoming year. Like, I mean, there's a chance because you're looking at potentially the Penguins going there. Well, Buffalo's farther west than Pittsburgh is, so I think that they stay in the same division as the Red Wings, and if you're in the same division as the Red Wings, you're probably going to get more points because of it. And I even if we go just because we're basing this podcast off of the current divisions as they are currently constructed. I completely agree with Tristan. He beat me to the gun. That's exactly why I think this team is a playoff team compared to a fifth team in the Metro. Simply because you're gonna. I mean, think about it. Like the Capitals have won the President's Trophy multiple times this past decade, but they haven't won it in the last several years. And it's been an Atlantic team each of the last 2 seasons, I believe. I believe it was the Bruins this past year, and then it was the Lightning before them. So, I mean, that's because the Atlantic gets to kind of beat the crap out of these bottom level teams.
Yeah.
And rack up some points, and then they get to play. We spent the entire episode last week talking about just how good this Metro division is. We've already all agreed that they're the best division in hockey. They're the deepest division in hockey, and half of them, probably 2/3, are fighting for a playoff spot. So if you or are a playoff caliber team. So if you look at just the simple math and the fact that they're all going to be playing each other, and considering the fact that the league might be, 4 bubbles to where you're only playing those teams, yeah, give me somebody who's not playing, the likes of Washington, Pittsburgh, or Philadelphia, Carolina, the Blue Jackets, the Rangers, just consistently. I mean, like, I think I'm going to have to go with having Buffalo over a team like the Rangers or the Blue Jackets or maybe even the Islanders, in terms of, just off of a pure points basis this season. Not by talent, but by points.
The thing that I have, this is the thing that I have, and this, what I'm going to say is a pretty decent segue into the next team that we're going to be talking about, is that, so teams 6, 5, and 4 are the 3 teams that are there. I think you can really kind of, each team has a case to finish in each spot. For the Sabres, I still think they're finishing in 4th clearly because that's where I kept them, but I think the goaltending is going to be their biggest thing. If Carter Hutton and Linus Ullmark do not play well, it doesn't matter if they're putting up four goals a night. If Linus Ullmark and Carter Hutton are putting in are allowing 5 or 6 goals, then they don't stand a chance. It doesn't matter how many points Eichel and Taylor Hall put up; they're just gonna lose. And
here's
with
that's
that,
the one thing I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is kind of a perfect point too. Would you say that the Buffalo Sabres are the Atlantic's version of the Carolina Hurricanes in that fashion?
Yes, I was actually going to say that. I was going to say that. I was going to say that. They are the Carolina Hurricanes of this division. I think the Canes are better just because they're deeper.
I agree with that.
I personally also think they're better coached, but it's
absolutely.
Who is the Sabres coach?
It's
not Roddy.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. But the Sabres, while they can finish in 4th, they can also finish behind the next team that I'm going to talk about that I'm really excited to talk about because I am almost willing. I'm not even almost. I am willing to die on this hill for this team. It's the Montreal Canadiens, and
let's do it.
This team, I got to tell you right now, I love what this team has done in the offseason. Out of any team in the Atlantic so far this year, this team has been my favorite. I think they've made some pretty smart moves. And so I'm just going to say right now that just come out with the additions and the losses, the additions that they had this season so far. They traded for Josh Anderson, and I will say right now they got killed in that trade. It kind of a dumb trade, but they made it. But Josh Anderson is still a good player. They signed Tyler Toffoli to a multi-year deal. They got Jake Allen on a multi-year deal, and they shored up the defense a little bit by signing Joel Edmondson. They lost Max Domi in that Josh Anderson deal. They lost Keith Kincaid, who is now playing, or probably going to play, in the AHL with the Hartford Wolfpack as a possible Ranger. And they just finally had the smart decision of buying out Carl Alzner, who had two more years left on that deal. And I know as Caps fans, you, especially Sean, since he is only a Caps fan, you can understand why the Canadians signed that man. That guy played pretty well as a Capital, but boy, did he play like
he fell off a cliff.
Absolutely.
I was looking at.
I mean, he spent his entire time with the Laval.
I was looking. I was telling Alex this the other day. So he played all 82 games his first season, and he did play pretty bad. He played really bad his all 82 games. You know how many games he played the rest of the time for the Canadians? Out of the next 2 years, he played like 13 games. 13 games. Every other game was played in with the was it Laval Rockets or something like that. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly. The Laval Rockets. So shedding like that near $5 million cap hit is big. I mean they got to eat some because of the buyout, but losing him or getting just rid of him is fantastic. But I love this team. The thing I love about this team is in every spot that they lost a person in, they got someone better, except clearly for Max Domi is a better player than Josh Anderson, but the signing of Tyler Toffoli was great. He played on a terrible Kings team, had 34 points in 56 games or something to that effect, but then got traded to a good Canucks team and was a point per game. Had 10 points in 10 games with 6 goals and 4 assists. I love that Tyler Toffoli trade. Instead of Keith Kincaid, they now have Jake Allen, who, he was with the Blues, but he's going to be a good backup for Carey Price. He's pretty good. And then there's also Joel Edmondson, who's a pretty damn good defenseman, and he's coming off a career high in points, which it's only 20, but that means that he is still kind of improving on the offensive spectrum. I don't think he's going to have 20 points on this Canadiens team just because the Canadiens team isn't as good, but he's a pretty decent defender. I think the Canadiens are the biggest wild card in this division, to be honest, more so than the Sabres. I think the Canadiens can finish anywhere from 6th, which is where I have them. I have them finishing 6th, and I'll explain with the next team why I have them 6th, or why I have them 6th instead of 5th. But I think they could finish anywhere between 6th, and I think they could finish 3rd if they play out of their minds. I think this team has the ability to beat out the Maple Leafs. I genuinely do. I love this team. I think the decisions that they made this offseason were incredibly smart. I love the signings. But I want to hear what you guys think, and I'm going to come to Alex last. I'm going to you last.
Because I will segue to the next team perfectly.
Exactly. Tristan, since you were a Canadiens fan, tell me, where do you have the Canadiens, and what do you think about them?
Like I said, it was really hard for me to choose between Montreal and Buffalo, but I put Buffalo in that 4th spot, so Montreal's going 5th for me, and I completely agree that they can go anywhere between 3. I don't know about 6. I think they can beat up Florida for me. Just looking at the depth and those new additions, but with Montreal, I love it. Honestly, I love the Josh Anderson trade. You have a team with Phil Deneau, Nick Suzuki, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Paul Byron, and Arturi Lehkonen. Those guys are tiny. Josh Anderson adds some much-needed size to, and also he can basically give the same amount of offensive, offensive depth that Max Domi could.
Well, I mean, Max Domi scored 72 points. I mean, he didn't do that last season. He had 40-something, but this dude did score 72. I don't think Josh Anderson's going to be a 60-point scorer on this team.
You never know. I mean, you see him. He has Nick Suzuki and Tyler Toffoli, allegedly on the same line, and that line could buzz. And speaking about buzzing, you look at that first power play unit. You got Nick Suzuki, Tatar, Drouin, Petrie, and Gallagher. Oh, those boys are going to have some fun. And then just having Carey Price at the backstop, like you said, these boys could go 3rd. They could beat out Toronto because Toronto has honestly. They haven't been very consistent in really anything that they've been doing, so we'll see what happens with them. I mean, it's a pretty safe bet that they're gonna be decent, especially in the regular season. But I don't know. I'm really excited about this new Canadiens team, even though I have them at 5th. It's gonna be a fun season.
So you have them one spot higher than I do. That's interesting. That's interesting. Sean, where do you have the Canadiens, and what do you think about them?
I also have them at 5th. I think that the Sabres just kind of narrow them out, and I think it comes down to experience a lot. I mean, this is a young team. I mean, they've got a lot of young pieces, but like you said, they're volatile, right? So they have a lot. I mean, I think you guys hit, not to steal Alex's words from earlier, but both you and Tristan kind of hit the nail. On the head. I can't think of words
there
right
we go.
We're struggling. I can't even steal words if I don't know how to say them. But anyway, I mean, this team could. I don't know if they will beat the Maple Leafs. I'm gonna be honest. Maple Leafs have just been they're the Clippers of the NHL. They should be so much better than what they've shown the last several years. Yeah. They also are like the Clippers in that they play in one of the largest markets, especially for hockey. They have everything available at their disposal, but we're not talking about them right now. I just, because of that, could they finish ahead of them? Maybe. However, the Maple Leafs do pretty damn well in the regular season. They're kind of like what the Caps used to be. It's the postseason that screws them. So I think that they won't. I don't think they'll overtake the Maple Leafs. I don't think they'll overtake the Sabres, and I think a lot of it has to do with experience. But I'm excited to see what this team does. I agree. I'm really excited. I really like the Domi Anderson trade. I think that was, a good piece or a good move for them to move forward and kind of take the next step.
All right, Alex, what do you think, and where do you have this Canadiens team?
Yep, I do not like this team one bit. I have the Canadiens. I have the Canadiens at 6th this year. Yeah, some of their guys are good, but if you look at the teams ahead of them, they all have something that the Canadiens don't, and that is.
Uh-oh, I think we may have lost Alex.
Nope, I hear him.
Oh, okay, I lost Alex for a little bit there.
Alex, you're out of comms right now.
Yep. All right, that's fine. We'll get back to Alex here in a second. But I gotta say, with this Canadiens team, Alex does bring up a good point. They do lack star power. That's the biggest thing. That's why I have them in 6th. So me and Alex have them at the same spot, but at different areas. I think this is one of the deeper teams in the in this division. I love Nick Suzuki and I love Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Kotkaniemi took a big step backwards last season, though. They eventually sent him to the AHL, and I think they eventually sent him back to Finland or Norway or wherever he's from or whatever league.
But then
he played in.
You look at the bubble, and he killed it. Oh,
he did. He did really well. The thing is, another thing I want to bring up with the Canadiens: are we finally going to see Ryan Poehling come up and play?
Oh my gosh!
We're talking about a guy who had
about him.
This is a dude who in his first NHL game on 3 shots had 3 goals.
Then the next 27 of them, he had again. 3 points. I believe it was 1 goal and 2 assists in 27 NHL games. So, going off of Sean words of volatility, that's Exhibit A. So if he can contribute at all, that will be just an even better addition to that pretty deep team. And honestly, I don't know if but if you're saying that they don't have any star power, but they have good depth. And I don't really know if, Florida, they have star power, but is that the star power that can actually be useful?
Well, I'm going to actually get to the next.
To jump ahead, Montreal, I absolutely think so.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And you know what? We're going to use that as a segment because the next team is the Panthers, and I'm going to say have them finishing above the Canadiens at 5th place. And this was... figuring out where the Panthers and where the Canadiens are going to fit, between those two teams, was the hardest. I thought really long about this decision, and it came down to 2 things for me. It was about star power on the Panthers, and it was about the signings and the depth that the Canadiens had. And I gave the star power that the Panthers had an edge over the Montreal Canadiens. And the reason why I kind of did that. And I got to say, first of all, the Panthers are a team that, in my opinion, did not get better in this division. They are the second team in this, or no, not the second team. They are the first team that I've talked about that just didn't get better in this division. They kind of just stayed the same. They lost some pretty decent guys. They lost Mark Pysyk, they lost Evgeny Dadonov, and they ended up bringing in Vinny Hinostroza, former Capital Radko Gudas, and Alexander Venberg. Yeah, right?
I'm sorry.
Cap
so just
legend.
to add a bit of a debate,
Cap legend. but
sorry. Just to add a little bit of a kind of makes you think. They didn't compete at all in these playoffs, and the Canadiens, they gave the Flyers
this is true.
a very good run for their money.
Okay, but the Blackhawks played well against the Oilers. That's not saying much.
Beat out the Oilers, and I think the Hawks are going to finish in one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah, it's
okay.
In this playoffs wasn't much to. it's
Another thing you have to
this
consider is the experience
Okay, go
that
ahead.
adds for all the young kids on the Canadians team. Like
That is true.
Kakanyemi, Suzuki, Lehkonen, like all these guys that came into these playoffs just young and, pretty much now I'm forgetting words. But they came in as all new guys who hadn't proven themselves, and they played their asses off in the last playoffs. So I think they absolutely deserve a spot over Florida, and just have that experience for them over a team that was just sitting on the couch that entire time. That's a bit of a game. That's the game changer for me.
So you have Florida at sixth place then?
Yes.
There we
But
go.
here's the thing that I want to say about Florida is that their head coach is Joel Quenneville. Sure, I might be a little biased at that, but if I've noticed one thing about what Quenneville knows like really well of what to do is he does a really good job with the distribution of wealth. Like what he'll do is he'll put like a 1-star player or even 2-star players on a line with a prospect that's not really good yet. That development is going to shoot through the roof. And the Florida Panthers have a great farm system. We're going to see some of these prospects come up, and to be honest, I think some of these prospects are better than the Canadians prospects. I think Oliver Bjorkstrand, the kid that played at University of Denver, he is such an exciting prospect. I watched a couple games at University of Denver, and this kid's hands are so good. I think he's going to contribute to the team right away. I also think that Florida also has the upper edge in defense. I think their defense is just a tad bit better than Montreal's. Granted, I don't think either of those two teams have very good defense at all. I think both of their team's defense is a little suspect. But regardless, I do think I would give the upper edge to Florida in defense. They did bring in Marcus Nudavara, and they still have Aaron Ekblad and Keith Yandel. And Keith Yandel is becoming an ageless wonder. I mean, how old is he now? 32. I mean, he's great. I mean, Radko Gudas, you can laugh about him all you want, but he brings. You want to talk about who was it that you were talking about?
He wasn't bad. That's the thing. It's like
talking about Josh Anderson bringing a physical presence to the game. I mean, that's what Radko Gudas does.
Radko takes suspensions. He
Exactly.
injures. Was he? I think he was the one that injured. That injured Couturier. Didn't he tear Couturier's...
injured so many people.
Well, the thing is, it was like in the middle of practice, I think, when he was still on the Flyers. I'm pretty sure he, like, tore Couturier's ACL in practice. Because I remember, I think that was him. Because I remember reading that and just thinking, like, what the hell was this dude thinking? Like, this dude's an actual animal for going this hard in practice and tearing one of your best players' ACLs. Yeah. But, like, but before I go on, I want to get Sean. Sean, where did you put Florida, and what do you think about Florida?
Okay, so this was hard. The reason I have them I honestly have them at 6 simply because I can't put them over. I can't put them in the top 3. Like, I don't think anybody in here is putting them in the top 3.
No.
Because the top 3 is pretty much a lock. So, I mean, that kind of leaves them at 6. The only reason I have the Canadians over them is because, yes, they lack the star power, but I think the potential is just through the roof for that Canadians team. And, like Tommy, you said, this team has a chance to do some wild things this year. The Canadians do. And so, I mean, like, you have to kind of respect that. And I think, honestly, like, I love the hiring of Joe Quenneville. I think that, that's the guy that you want to have leading a budding team. I don't think the Panthers also have, Bobrovsky, one of the top goalies in the NHL. They have, I can't think of his name. Is it Radulov or Radolf? I don't know why his name is.
No, Dadonov.
Dadonov. Yeah, I do.
He's on this. He's on the
they lost Dadonov.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So so you lost Dadonov, and it's just, I just feel like that team is on the right trajectory. Like, a lot of the teams are in kind of the middle of the pack of the Atlantic. This division, to be honest with you, could end up becoming more like the Metro we see today in a couple of years, because Buffalo's on the way up, the Canadians are on their way up, I think Florida's on their way up, and then you still have the top three. And I just don't have any room for them higher than 6. Although I think it's going to be really close between them and the Canadians for that 5th spot, and even the Sabres. I mean, I think all 3 of those teams. It wouldn't shock me if I'm not mistaken. They were all separated by about 10 points between the 3 of them. Like they were all within a 10-point range in the final standings. It wouldn't shock me if they're all almost even closer this year.
I agree with that. I just put them over the Canadians because of that star power. I think first of all, Alexander Barkov is Alexander Barkov and Jonathan Huberdeau is Jonathan Huberdeau. Like those guys are going to be point per game players. But on top of that, like Aaron Ekblad is a great defenseman. Keith Yandel just doesn't age apparently, and the dude just keeps on being like almost all-star level caliber type talent. And then if Bob can kind of fix the wrongs that he did last year, because you got to admit he really didn't have all that good of a first year in Sunrise. Like he really didn't do what people were expecting of him. But the great
Especially
thing is,
considering the money you got to pay.
well, yeah. But the great thing about that is that was year number 1 of that deal. He's not exactly like they haven't wasted their money yet. There's still plenty of time for him to show that he's exactly who he was in Columbus. But if he can play better, if he could play like Columbus's version of Bobrovsky, then I think this team just has way too much talent for the Canadians. I still think it's going to be close. I just think that it's too much for the Canadians or any whoever's behind them in 6th to really make up. Because I mean, their team as a whole is all right. It's not as deep, but it's all right. Because I mean, Weegar is a decent defenseman. Marcus Ludovar is more than a decent defenseman. He's a pretty good defenseman. And then their third line on defense is projected to be Anton Stroman and Radko Gudas, which is quite an aggressive third line. That's going to be quite a chippy third line. Their backup goalie is Dredger, I think. But everything else is kind of blah on this team. I think they're gonna have to be led by the stars, and I think that the superstars in this team are just too much for whoever's in 6th to really compete, or not compete, but really take over this team. That's why I put them at 5th. I do not think they're making the playoffs. They're clearly not making the wild card at 5th. Again, they're not as good as a Metropolitan team, and I don't think they're as good as the Sabres. But this team, I just think it's just a bit better than the Canadians. Next year, if we are still doing this next year, I will probably be putting the Canadians above the Panthers unless they do something ridiculous. But I think the Panthers this year are just a bit too good for the Canadians. But moving on to the top 3, which Sean just said is pretty much solidified. The first team we really got to talk about is the Maple Leafs. I personally have them finishing in 3rd place. They were pretty busy this offseason. They but they signed Joe Thornton to that $700,000 deal for a year. Yeah. They got TJ Brody. They brought in Jimmy Vesey, Zach Bogosian, and Wayne Simmons. And they traded away some guys. Andreas Janssen, I think. He went to the Devils. Tyson Barrie, he's now on the Oilers. Cody Ceci is gone, and then Kasperi Kapanen is now a part of the Pittsburgh Penguins. But the team didn't really get worse, but it didn't necessarily get better either. They did enough to where they don't have to worry about just losing their spot at 3rd. I think the large majority of people are going to put them at 3rd, unless you guys are going to surprise me here and have them at 1 or 2. But I think they did enough to keep themselves in 3rd. Although one of the big key factors that I wrote down for them was the old man experiment. How Spezza and Joe Thornton are going to be doing, because those are some old dudes. Those are dudes that have been around the block for years now. And how are they going to be playing on this, I gotta say, pretty young Maple Leaf squad? But Alex, where did you put the Maple Leafs, and what do you think about this team?
Yeah, I think 3rd place is perfect for them. I mean, I do get a little worried about them because this is a very top-heavy team. Even if you want to talk about offense or defense, they're top-heavy. Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews, John Tavares, and Nylander, they're all going to do their things. They're going to be point-per-game players, if not more. They just need to get Zach Hyman to be able to also contribute along with Kerfoot and even Jimmy Vesey. That's the kind of things I know, but that's the kind of things that do scare me with this team. Are their later line players going to be able to contribute to the team as well? I think that's why they haven't had very much playoff success in the recent years, because they're really not that deep of a team ever. They have all that money sunk into the first and second line. I think the Wayne Simmons signing was a waste of money for them, to be completely honest with you. I don't really see him contributing in any positive form. Nonetheless, though, I do see this as a good team. Their defense is still pretty strong. Like Travis Dermott is a solid defenseman, and he's probably going to play as that fifth defenseman. But he's one of their worst defensemen, and yet he's still pretty good. You still got Morgan Riley, adding in TJ Brody, still keeping around Jake Muzzin. It's a great defense. You see Justin Hull come out of nowhere and actually be able to be a solid defenseman. It's a good team. I just don't, again, I see this as another year that the Maple Leafs are going to make the playoffs and not really do much in the playoffs. And it sucks to say, because Austin Matthews is inching his way up as my favorite player in the NHL. I think Pablo's an awesome player. That mustache he has is absolutely disgusting. Makes me want to play the Narcos theme song. Yeah, but I don't know. It's a weird team. Their lines every single year are just odd, but it works in the regular season and it doesn't work in the playoffs.
No.
So I mean, we'll go ahead and see what they do. The regular season, they're going to compete for second place, I believe. They will not compete for first. But when all said is done, they're going to be a playoff team, but I don't see them a first round knockout, maybe a second round knockout, but we'll see. They're an interesting team.
Yeah, I agree. Personally, I don't think they're going to be competing for second place. I think third is going to be their spot. I think they are solidified at third. But Tristan, what do you think about this Maple Leafs team?
I have them at third, and you guys have already covered a lot of stuff with the signings and everything, but I believe it was Brian Burke who said it, and I couldn't agree more with the Joe Thornton signing, is that you already have Jason Spezza. You already have an ancient relic who's already dying on the ice. You don't need another one.
Damn.
Hey, Joe Thornton's a god.
Yeah.
You don't. Okay, well, you don't need two of them though. You don't need two of them, and especially if it's gonna be another kind of bubble situation where it's testing these guys' limits physically and mentally. They might have the mental aspect down, but I don't think these guys are going to be able to compete in the long run. So they'll have a nice, solid third position in the going into the playoffs. But after that, I don't see anything. But Alex, you said you don't really like the Wayne Simmons, and I kind of do. I feel like if he can do something,
I agree.
He's gonna do it here, especially in his hometown of Toronto, and it just adds a little bit of a depth aspect to a team that has never really had it.
Yeah.
The thing I like about the Wayne Simmons signing for them is he's on a team where he doesn't really have to put up points.
Yeah.
He's when he played in New Jersey, he was kind of expected to put up points. When he played in Nashville, he was kind of expected to put up points just because that team's offense wasn't that good. Kind of in Philly had more so the star players to really not rely on him. But here, he's absolutely not expected to be the man to put the puck in the back of the net. I think he's more so the physical presence. And Wayne is a very scary guy, to be honest. I mean, he's a dude who's not afraid to do the gritty stuff, to really dig the puck out of the corners and hit some guys, or heck, even take some 5-minute fighting majors if he really needs to. But like I like that. I like that.
No, just imagine the entire city of Toronto, his hometown, being behind him too.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun. But Sean, what did you think about this team?
I mean, I'm excited about the Wayne Simmons deal. I think, like he's proven to be a solid player. He hasn't really shown it the past couple of stops, but like Tristan said, if you're going to do it, why not put on for your hometown? And he's going on to the most loaded roster he's played on in his career. So I also agree with Alex in that they are ridiculously top heavy. Like, it's not even close. I mean, like they're first line forwards are talent-wise, like among some of the best in the NHL. Austin Matthews continues to grow the disgusting caterpillar on his lip, but he reps ASU, so I can't hate on the guy. But in all seriousness, I think when you look at this team, they got to get over the hump some way. And like Tommy said, they didn't. I mean, you guys really did cover the signings and everything well. They didn't really get a whole lot better. They didn't get worse. I mean, Tommy kind of hit the nail on the head that time. I said it correctly, but
boy.
Yeah, speaking so hard. It's just they do not have the firepower to overtake the Bruins or the maybe the firepower. I guess
I was going to say they don't have the depth.
No, that's the wrong word. Yes, they don't have the depth to beat the Bruins and overtake the Lightning. They definitely have the firepower. But that's if you have your top guys playing the entire damn game. And that's obviously not possible in the sport of hockey. So I think, the team is going to be hovering right around where they usually are in terms of standings every year in the regular season. It's just a matter of whether or not the top-level guys show up and really show out in the postseason to a point to where it kind of compensates for their lack of depth and they can actually potentially make a run and give the Six a Stanley Cup that they've been so desperately waiting for over the years.
Yeah.
If I can say one more thing about this team, it's before we change to another team, is that when we first covered the Joe Thornton signing to the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think we were all in the same agreement that Joe Thornton is being signed to just not even player. Am I correct?
He's more of a locker room guy.
He's a leadership.
He's a locker room guy.
We were all agreeing that he wasn't even going to play. But now when we look at this team and we kind of, dissect this team, he's going to have to play.
Yeah, that's true.
If you guys can, tell me who they would play in center on the third line for his spot that's not Jason Spezza, I would be astonished that you could do that. Because I'll tell you right now, I have no idea who would play in for him.
Same. Yeah. I can't tell you either.
So he is going to have to play. And who is going to be that third or fourth line center is going to be a fight between the old men. And it's basically going to come down to which one of you has more stamina. That's all it's going to come down to. It's not going to come down to skill or point production. Whoever can be on the ice the longest, that's who's going to be on the third line. Because you're going to be on a line probably with two guys in their mid to young 20s. So you're going to have to stay on the ice for quite a bit, and I don't see that being Joe Thornton.
The thing is with this team is, and I'm really curious, is if we're going to see a lot more injuries to this Maple Leafs team because for them to compete, they really have to keep the first and second line out there longer just to get more goals and more production offensively. That takes a toll on the top six lines. Especially getting into the dog days of the season. Are we going to end up seeing these guys kind of physically be at their limit a lot sooner than some of these other teams? But moving on, we're going to talk about now the Stanley Cup champions of the NHL, the Tampa Bay Lightning. They are a fun team to watch. They are a playoff team. I have them winning the division this year after they didn't win the division last season, even though they went on to win the Stanley. I have them finishing in first place. Some of the signings and losses that they had, they lost Zach Bogosian and they lost Kevin Shattenkirk. Bum, but
I think we can all agree on that one.
Well, he was at least a bum. He was at least a bum in New York.
Didn't he score an overtime goal? during this postseason? Or
I'm
am I
talking
thinking-
about.
he
I'm
did
talking about in
really
New
well
York.
for
in New
Tampa.
York.
Yeah, I'm talking about his tenure in DC.
No, of course.
You know,
Of
he
course,
played his ass
of course.
off.
That's what I'm saying. No, I agree. We all are. Trust me, we are all on the same page of Kevin Shattenkirk after St. Louis. But yeah, he did really well this postseason with Tampa Bay.
Yeah, no, he did, but they lost him. They lost him. He went out west, but they ended up adding Luke Shen, and then they also added Andreas Bjorgman, I believe his name is. But I think this team is just way too talented, and honestly, it's pretty deep too, to just not finished in first. Like there's really not a position that you can say on this team where it's like, yeah, that's kind of a problem, or that needs to be fixed up. This team is just good, like just all around the entire ice. I mean, you got Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, Anthony Cirelli, Yanni Gord,
Big rig.
like exactly, like and Victor Hedman, Mikhail Sergachev, Ryan McDonough, sad face. And then your goalie is one of the best goalies in the league with Vasilevsky. So
If not the best.
exactly. So I mean, you're fine. Like this team, I personally, we're gonna get to it eventually when we talk about playoff predictions later on. But I'm probably gonna have this team repeating the Stanley Cup this year, which I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what the last team to repeat is. I would guess it was the Penguins. But
Yes, it was the
yeah,
Penguins.
yeah. So I think this team is going to repeat. Personally, this team is just way too good. They're going to eventually run into an issue with cap, and they're going to run into an issue with age and whatnot. But that's going to be
not yet.
Exactly. It's not right now, which is the biggest thing for them. So, but Alex, what do you make of this Tampa Bay Lightning team?
Yeah, I'm going to make it really quick because this team is just that good. Where there's not really much you have to say about this team. They're the number one team in the Eastern Conference. They're the number one team in the league. I don't see them repeating, but I do see them making it to the finals. I mean, the thing that I love about this team, they are filled with guys that are just so underrated. I mean, you want to talk about Andre Palat, Anthony Cirelli, Alex Killorn, Blake Coleman, my man dropping the F-bomb on live TV, Pierre Maguire looking like he's going to explode.
Braden Point.
Awesome. Braden Point, I do not think is underrated. I think Braden Point's one of the best centermen in the league.
He's exactly where he is.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's underrated. I'm just saying, like, if we're just going to list guys that are just like...
Oh, no, I'm listening. I'm just saying they're underrated guys.
Oh,
they're filled with underrated guys. And then Yanni Gord, too. Yanni Gord is an absolute... I don't know if you guys have seen his him mic'd up. He is an absolute nutcase. But...
I love it.
Yeah, this team is just filled with underrated guys. I mean, even Mikhail Sergachev, I think, is insanely underrated. This team is just so good, and yeah, they're going to make it to the finals again, and they're going to lose. And I think Sean knows exactly who they're going to lose to.
Well, maybe I don't know. It's with that. I don't think he does.
I think I do. I mean, Alex, I'm assuming is saying that they're gonna lose to the Vegas Golden Knights.
Absolutely.
All right.
The thing that I'm saying is, I disagree. I think that this team is one of the best teams. I think we're gonna look back on the Lightning squad in 10, 15 years.
Best team ever.
And we're going to look, I mean, like, if some of these guys continue their career trajectory over a long period of time and do what they're supposed to over the rest of their career, the amount of Hall of Famers on this team is actually almost ridiculous. Like
multiple 1,000-point scores.
It's kind of nuts. I mean, you don't want to jump the gun too much, but like it's pretty wild. And this is a team that could honestly end up being the first team to go back to back to back. I believe, did the Red Wings do it?
Yes.
I can't remember. Yeah, they could be the first team since the Red Wings if they're able, because I was looking at their cap situation, and they don't lose many guys after next season either. So, I mean, like, if they can keep this squad together, John Cooper's one of the best coaches in the National Hockey League. yeah, there's not going to be a team that's going to be scarier than Tampa Bay for at least the next 2 seasons. And I think that, like Alex said, you don't really have to break it down a lot because it's just common sense. This team won it last year. They won it in dominating fashion during the regular season. The only reason things got maybe a little bit hairy in the playoffs was because the playoffs were so weird this year. I mean, like, the guys literally had an insane run in the regular season, had the world stop on a dime, and then had to pick up the sticks, their gear again, and then get back out on the ice in a city that they don't usually call home and play the Stanley Cup and play the Stanley Cup playoffs. Give me a regular – well, granted, we know this year probably won't be a, quote, regular season in the National Hockey League, but give me a sort of normal season in the NHL, and yeah, I think Tampa almost cruises. And so it's just, one of those things where –
So you put them first? I'm assuming you put them first in this division?
You don't have to break it down. You don't have to break it down much farther than that. They're first in this division. I think they're first in the NHL.
Yep. Tristan, your opinion?
I could not agree more. They are the number 1 team for the next few years because they are young and they are superstars. And to kind of combat Alex's point of them losing to the Golden Knights, all things being equal, absolutely not. Like, I say all things being equal because we see things like, them being swept by the Blue Jackets last year. And so it's kind of, I don't want to say that they're going to absolutely cruise, but just like no matter what, because we do see some funky things happening in this league, but...
That's true. There's nothing like playoff hockey. That's true.
Yeah,
exactly.
That is true.
But just by looking at the players on each team, the Lightning are... They got it in the bag, but that's what we say every year, and they've only got it once. But granted, they have it once now. Maybe that was the monkey off the back. And
I was going to say that too.
Yeah, they might be. I feel like they're going to have a bit more confidence and just play their asses off to get that again and just show everyone who they really are and just the absolute studs that they are. Regular pre-post, whatever type of season that they're in, they're going to kill it.
The best way I can describe this, and Alex, obviously, you tell me if I'm wrong, this is almost like a Blackhawk situation with a young Kane, a young Taves, where they finally get the taste, right, of winning a championship. They know what it takes. They know what they got to do moving forward, and they're still a dominant team. That's exactly what the Lightning have.
But here's the thing. This Lightning team is better than those Blackhawks teams.
That's why I'm saying I don't think it's close. That's exactly my point. Is that you look at what those Blackhawks teams were able to do with the young core and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, like the Lightning aren't babies. They've been doing this for a while now, being towards the top of the league. But they finally did it. And I think they're gonna, they have that taste in their mouth, and they're gonna keep going. I mean, like, it would not – the thing is you look at, like, the other teams in the East especially that are towards the top, they're all on the decline, whether it be slightly or whether it be quite significantly. They're moving in the wrong direction.
Yep.
Tampa is steadfast at the top. Like, they have not moved down – the needle has not moved in one way or another. Granted, because they can't get much better than they currently are. Mm-hmm. But it's – I don't see this team slowing down in the next, 700 plus days. Like, I think this team is going to be an absolute force, and I'm dead serious. Where I think this is the first team that we can honestly look at and say they have a chance, a potentially serious chance of being the first three-peat since the Detroit Red Wings. Like there
this
haven't
team
been
is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Here's the one thing I will say though. It doesn't. Because this team is so deep in star power too, it may not affect it that much. But we have to remember that Steven Stamkos, he underwent surgery. I think 2 surgeries. Mm-hmm. So is he going to be back to 100% this upcoming season? Whoever knows when that's going to start. But is he going to be back to 100%? Because it was a pretty big surgery. I think it was like his abdominal core that he had surgery on, and his leg.
I think you're right. But the thing is, though, is that just from what we saw over the playoffs, doesn't matter. they did that without him. He went in for like what 2 games. He scored 1 goal, earned his name on his on
Well,
that
that's what I'm
trophy.
saying.
But
That's
but
what I'm saying is that they are so heavy in that firepower
yeah,
that it may
they-
not matter, but
don't
there's a chance that it could.
The thing is
Yeah.
with Stamkos, like even if he doesn't come back at 100% and he comes back at like 90% or something like that,
Talk about
90%,
leadership.
90%, like I'm saying like if he never returns to the dominance that he was at non-injured Steven Stamkos, if he is at 90% of what he was, that is still a perennial all-star. That is
yeah.
still
Oh, yeah.
a point per game player. Like they aren't missing
Yeah.
much.
He's a first line
That's
guy
like
if
a
he's
40-goal
75%.
Yeah, exactly. Like this
like-
this is a guy who like even if he doesn't come back to what he was, this dude is still like the stud of your team. Like he is
Well,
the
is he
guy.
the stud going for? Like,
No.
let's be honest. Even I don't think
He's
he's the
not.
stud anymore. I don't. I think it's
it's Kucherov.
Kucherov. I think
I
it's 100%
think it depends.
Kucherov.
I think it depends this season. We'll see.
I think honestly, last year was when the torch was passed.
I
I
Or
think
no, the year
2 years
before.
ago.
What, no, yeah, I was gonna say too. I was trying to remember which year he won MVP. Yeah, no, like Kucherov established himself as one of the best players in the National Hockey League, and I don't
That's what I was
think
gonna say.
I like Stamkos is the face of the franchise and everything like that, and I respect that. He's earned that. He's gonna stay the captain. But he is not the best player on the Tampa Bay Lightning anymore.
I don't even
He's
think Stamkos
not.
is the face of the franchise anymore.
Well,
think that
I'm saying he
all
is in
Kucherov.
the. That's fair, but I'm saying he is in the way that like you look at like some other teams around the league where like they have a guy who's been there for a long time and he has been their ambassador and their face of the franchise. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Okay, yeah.
I think I like that's what I mean in terms of that. I don't he's not going to lead in really anything maybe except for goals statistically speaking. But I think he's the face of the franchise just on an actual like you want to say communications level for lack of a better word.
Yeah. All right. And with that said, we got to move on to our last team. Our last team being the Boston
Kind of
Bruins.
surprised we did it in this order.
Yeah.
'Cause
Well,
we're going from this guy. This team's the best ever.
I know.
Here's
Yeah.
the Bruins.
well, this team finished first in the Atlantic last season. Didn't win the Stanley Cup like their counterparts did, like the Lightning did. But I still have them at second place. I think it'll be close again this year. This team again, that's arguably the best first line in the NHL, being Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, and David Pastrnak. Like it's kind of ridiculous, like the stuff that they do together. This team was also deep. They got good defense. Their goalie situation is fine with Tuukka and then Halak, but they're just, in my opinion, just a little bit worse than the Lightning. Like there isn't much separating the Lightning and the Bruins, and for me, like I think it's just the amount of talent. I think it's just a little bit, like a very tiny sliver worse than what the Lightning are. Like if the Lightning didn't have a few of their depth players, I think we'd be talking a different story, and the Bruins would be in first. But this team I have still in second place. They added oh, pardon me, I almost lost it here. They added a couple of guys. They added Craig Smith, who was with Nashville last season. They added the what was the 13th or 14th forward on the Rangers last season. That's Greg McKegg, and I always loved that name.
Nice.
Yeah, but they did lose, their best defenseman in Torrey Krug. They lost Joakim Nordstrom, and there's potential to also lose Zdeno Chara there. He hasn't signed yet. And I really
He's not
don't
going to play anywhere but
exactly,
Boston.
exactly.
Yeah,
They
no
haven't
chance.
they haven't signed him yet. At least as of today, they haven't signed him yet. So the potential to lose him is still there. I put him in the losses category just because he's not on the team as of right now. But he's going to be a Boston Bruin, and if he's not, I'd be extremely confused of why he's not and what the reason is. But
Well, if
Another
he's not a Boston Bruin, he's not playing hockey anymore. That's literally
precisely,
the only
precisely. I mean, he's old, so he's either going to retire or he's going to be a Bruin. So, and the big thing that kind of separates them from the Lightning this year is losing Torrey Krug, because that hurts. Losing your best defenseman and one of your power play quarterbacks, it hurts. It really does, because now they got to rely on like Charlie McAvoy really to kind of be the quarterback of that
Which
power
I
play.
think is totally fine to rely on him, and I would disagree
yeah.
saying Torrey Krug was the best defenseman. I think Charlie McAvoy is.
I think
Charlie McAvoy is so much better than Torrey Krug in every way possible.
No,
every way possible.
I completely disagree with you, but we will get to that when we talk about the Central next week. But I losing him still hurts. And that's just the big thing that separates them from the Lightning for me. Sean, what do you think about the Bruins?
I have him finishing in 6th. No, I'm kidding.
Wild.
I'm gonna there's not a whole lot more to say here, in that we're literally out of places for us to put teams.
Mm-hmm.
They fit in 2nd. I think the Lightning take this next step to win the President's Trophy again. I mean, they don't have to take a new step. It's kind of going back to where they were. Bruins are good. They're a really good team. Tuukka Rask is still among one of the top goalies in the NHL. You look at the depth that this team has. It's obviously not to the extent that the Lightning have, but they still have a lot of solid players. Boston's kind of been one of those teams, right, for the longest time, it feels like, as a contender, and they've gotten it done. I can't stand Brad Marchand. He's actually probably my least favorite player in the National Hockey League. Well, it's either him or I'd actually probably still put Brian Reeves above him. But regardless, I think when you just look at this team, they're poised to make another run. They're poised to make some more damage in the postseason. It's just you have a buzzsaw waiting for you at the end of the tunnel. Like, the saying goes, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but sometimes you don't know if it's the sun or if it's a train, and the Lightning are a train. I definitely think that this team has the capability to win a championship. I think this team is talented enough to win a championship. They have good enough coaching to win a championship. They have good enough players at all 3 levels and all 3 phases. But it's again, I mean, we spent so little time on the Lightning for a reason. You don't have to really overthink this. I still have the Lightning comfortably ahead. We'll see what happens in the playoffs. We've mentioned this before. Anything can happen. The Stanley Cup playoffs are nuts. It's also worth noting injuries happen. It's a very physical sport. Lightning end up losing. We talked about Steven Stamkos. Nikita Kucherov goes down, or you look at a guy like Braden Point, or Steven Stamkos is like really not okay. Now you're looking at a different story. Mm-hmm. So, but the same goes for the Bruins. I mean, they have a lot of players that they have to rely on. If Patrice Bergeron goes down, Brad Marchand goes down, McAvoy goes down, like it's the same thing. So I think they're going to be 1 and 2 in the Eastern Conference, and I think we'll probably see them in the conference finals this upcoming season.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Alex, what do you think about this Boston team?
I think Sean said everything beautifully.
Thank you.
I mean, there's really nothing to say about this team. They're insanely good, I think. They're insanely deep. They play a different play style that we don't see a lot anymore. They have no problem dropping the gloves. They beat you up on the scoreboard and on the ice. The one thing about this team is the goaltending. Is Tuukka Rask going to be able to be Tuukka Rask this year? I mean, age is catching up to him. He was talking about retirement soon. Are they going to be able to rely on another old goaltender as a backup in Yaroslav Halak? Yeah, I mean, I think the only team in the Eastern Conference that's going to be able to compete with Tampa Bay is going to be the Bruins. I don't think that the Lightning will run away with the division, because I think it's going to be tighter than we think. Not saying that it's going to come down to 1 or 2 points, because I do think in the end we're going to see the Lightning take the division, but I do see the Bruins. I don't see the Bruins going down without a fight. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Tristan, what are your thoughts on this team?
So, With the loss of Torrey Krug, it really dampens their defense, and like Alex said, like the goalie situation is a little rough. I feel like Halak is still going to be doing, or not Halak, or well, I guess Halak and Rast, they're going to be doing their things, and I feel like Halak's going to be getting a little bit more time than he was last year, just to kind of compensate for that age factor. But speaking of age factor, like I said, these guys aren't getting younger, and Patrice Bergeron, he's 35 now. Brad Marchand, he's 32, I think, and then Tuukka Rask, he's 33. Like this is a pretty old team, and they don't really
kind
have
of the
a lot
opposite of the
young
Lightning.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like the Lightning, they're all in their prime. Like they're all between like 24 and like 28, and they're they're gonna be out there buzzing around, and there's gonna be Pat Maroon, big rig, just smashing up
Pat
faces,
Maroon.
and you don't really see that type of play style from the guys in the Bruins organization. Like you have Pasternak, he's playing with two old guys. Like of course that line is just going to go off because of just how well they work together. But other than that, they kind of drop off a lot in young talent. Besides, Charlie McAvoy, but that's defense. You have defenders playing a lot more offense these days, but it's still not going to be enough to do that much. But, granted, they're still in the second spot for me. They're still going to be doing some good things, but I don't think they're going to be nearly as good as they have been in recent years.
Last thing I want to say, just before we wrap everything up, because I don't think we talked about Pasta nearly as much as maybe we should have, especially considering what he did last year.
Mm-hmm.
I am so happy that he is in the National Hockey League, especially as a Capitals fan. Like, I mean, you look at what Ovechkin's done. Ovechkin could very well go down as the greatest goal scorer in the history of of hockey. What a great person to pass on the torch to.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Pasternak is going to be that next guy that is just going to light the lamp more than anybody else in the NHL. He has taken that step, this past 2 seasons to enter that conversation. A lot of people thought Patrick Laine was going to be that guy. A lot of people did. And, you still have Steven Stamkos down in Tampa Bay. But I think Pasternak is going to be the guy to kind of be the scoring, phenom for years to come in the NHL. So I'm excited.
Not to mention those fantastic Dunkin' Donuts commercials that he.
Yes, those are honestly the best commercials involving an NHL player, without question.
Yeah,
Right.
no, absolutely. And with that, I think that's a good place to leave it for now. That concludes our Atlantic Division predictions. Again, asterisk, we don't know what's going to change. A lot can change, a little could change, nothing could change. But for now, that's what we think the Atlantic Division is going to look like. I had a pretty fun talk tonight. Anybody got any final thoughts before we wrap it up completely tonight? Final thoughts, anybody?
I look forward to talking about the Blackhawks for like 3.5 hours next week.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. The Central is going to be fun next week.
I'm
We're
going
gonna
to
have the
absolute
Central.
shit on the Blackhawks.
We know you have every chance to just rail Stan Bowman. So if you want to hear some hilarious banter, tune in next week when we talk about the Central Division, which is going to be very interesting just because of Alex's ties with the Blackhawks. So
we should just have one whole episode just based on the Blackhawks.
I think honestly, we're just going to start with the Blackhawks. Everybody will just be on mute, and it'll just stay that way until it's like, okay, guys, we're done. Bye. We don't even get to any other teams.
Alex
It's
is
just
gonna. We're gonna give it to Alex, and Alex is just gonna start off for an hour. Just Stan Bowman is.
I was going to say, okay, so here's the plan. Episode 9, we'll talk about the Central Division. Episode 8, we'll talk about the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Well, this was a good night. Thank you all for listening, and make sure you tune in next week to listen to us attempt to predict the Central Division. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight.